As you take a look at what's going on, because you have responsibility in this area, if things continue as they are headed right now, that is to say we will get tariffs on Mexico, which the president said, absent some major change in Mexican position, as well as increased tariffs on Chinese imports. What effect do you believe that will have on global growth?
Forgive me, but I think that's the wrong place to start the argument. I think it's important for your viewers to understand the problem we're trying to solve here. We have essentially a business enterprise south of our border that involved narco traffickers and human traffickers. At any one time now, over 100,000 illegal aliens are transiting from the southern border of Mexico, heading for places like San Diego and El Paso, and imposing over $100 billion worth of costs on this nation. And we have a system in Mexico of incentives that basically encourages this traffic. What we're trying to do here, what President Donald J. Trump is doing, is shifting the cost to Mexico so that they will deal firmly with this problem. And that's what we're focused on now. And we believe that today will be a good day for America and Mexico. We're having high-level meetings with the Mexican side. The important thing here is to get this problem solved. I would remind everybody watching this show that the American economy and the Trump economy is very, very strong right now. I would say to you that the tariffs that have been put into place have had zero impact on inflation. They've encouraged a tremendous amount of investment here in the United States, and most of the burden, for example, with the China tariffs, have been borne by the Chinese. So I think that talking about what the World Bank may or may not have said about what our growth rate would be really is misdirection for the people who watch this show.
Okay.
The Trump economy is solid.
Okay, so let's try to get back in the right direction according to your compass. There's no question, I don't think, on either side of that, there's a substantial problem with people coming across our southern border. I think everyone agrees with that. The question is, what do we do about it and who pays the price? Senator Ted Cruz, Republican senator from Texas, not David Malpass of the World Bank, said overnight, in fact, that he agrees something's got to be done about the border, but we should not be charging, essentially, the farmers and the workers of Texas, which is what will really happen if we impose tariffs. Where has Senator Cruz got it wrong?
The problem we're facing is a national security issue. Congress as an institution has an obligation to ensure that we have secure borders, and the legal immigration that does occur should be merit-based so that on net, when we have immigration that's legal into our country, it's to the benefit of both our society and our economy. Congress has failed as an institution to deal with that issue. So what President Trump is doing with his policy is dealing with a national emergency, a crisis at the border that threatens both our economy and our national security in a way which incentivizes both Congress and the Mexican government to deal with this issue firmly. This is what we hope. The president has tried every possible avenue with Congress and with the Mexican government to no avail. And this is a firm step. I think it's a brilliant stroke in terms of approaching this problem. The problem here, if you look at this simply as a business enterprise south of the border, very lucrative enterprise, and it's a public-private partnership in the sense that you have the narco traffickers and the human traffickers, and then you have government officials making a lot of money. I mean, there's a system of checkpoints that runs south to north to the United States that are supposed to stop a lot of this activity, when in fact a lot of corruption takes place and it continues. So what we're trying to do is explain to the Mexican government that you have to bear your share of the responsibility of this. Right. In terms of what needs to be done, there's a three-part solution. We've laid it out very clearly. The most important thing is for the Mexican government to take the asylum seekers. Right now, we've got basically a strategic game that's going on whereby the human traffickers educate the people that they want to take a lot of money from to move north the border. They tell them, look, here's your script, cross the border, ask for asylum, you can stay there. We've got to break that cycle. Mexico can do that. If it simply takes those illegal aliens that are trying to game the system, as soon as people in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras find out that they'll be in Mexico rather than the U.S., that will stop. We need to stop that. Southern border, it's a 150-mile border as opposed to our border, which is 2,000 miles. It's a border, Guatemala and Mexico, that is defined by a number of natural and artificial choke points, so that traffic would be much easier to stop there than once it gets into Mexico. So we're asking them to do that. And then in between on that grand conveyor belt of 100,000 illegal aliens every day moving, they need to crack down on that. It's buses, trains, rail, it's checkpoints, it's big business.
So Peter, you just laid out your three-part plan. I assume that's been conveyed to the Mexican government. Are you confident that's something they can get agreement to at least by June 10 and avoid that deadline?
I'm confident that Mike Pompeo, Bob Lighthizer, USTR Bob Lighthizer, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and others in the negotiating team, including President Trump, have signaled very clearly to the Mexican side what needs to be done. I believe the Mexicans are sincere about wanting to do something, but the problem that the Mexicans have faced is that there's just a lot of money being made on their side of the border on this trafficking without bearing any costs. President Trump is going to impose costs on them unless they act, so therefore they will act.
Right. So, Peter, and I mean this with all due respect, is that your title is the Director of Trade and Manufacturing Policy, when you basically have been talking about national security. Companies come on our show and say that we're going to have to raise prices, that we're very scared about these tariffs, particularly when it comes to Mexico and their supply chains. The markets were very surprised, and you saw extreme sell-off over the last week since they were announced. What's your tolerance for market sell-off and for rising prices for consumers if you wind up continuing to impose tariffs on national security issues?
Well, I think you're probably aware that before I joined the White House for years, over a decade, my job, besides being in academia, was to assess the markets from a macro point of view. I'm very bullish right now because what President Trump has done is to change the game. Right now, we are taking a strong measure which will change the Mexican calculus in a way which will actually get a solution on our southern border. That's where we need to go to, and that's good for the markets. In terms of the impacts of the tariffs, this is a textured question. I mean, within the context of the China tariffs, I've heard just so much blather about who pays for that. I mean, clearly China bears the vast majority of the burden of the Trump tariffs, and they do so because they sell us fewer exports. They're forced to lower their prices. We see at the Chinese state level that they have less investment there because of the tariffs. And what the president is doing in that case is trying to get the Chinese to stop attacking our economy with things like forced technology transfer and intellectual property theft. The Mexican issue is a national security issue. I think everybody agrees that this is intolerable. You cannot have 100,000 people every day moving south to north into this country. And we set an ignominious record last week when a single group of over 1,000 illegal aliens walked over from Juarez, Mexico, right into El Paso in one group. I mean, that's unbelievable. But the people of America need to have this information, and once they have this information and the costs that illegal immigration imposes on this nation, they will strongly support this president.